Yes. Welcome to the Jacob Wayne Show. This is another solo episode with your old boy, Jacob Wayne. So who knows how long it's going to go, because I'm just going to go over stuff that's going on this week, new releases, stuff like that. So let's get into it. Once again, my throat's a little fucked up today. I feel like perhaps my body's falling apart, and that's okay. I'm getting old. Eventually I'll hit that line where it's like, let's just call it good. But hopefully that's decades from now. So what am I sipping on? I'm recording at 4:36 p.m. on a Tuesday. Coffee. Maybe a little late for some of y'all, but I could drink coffee into the night. So that's all I'm sipping on. It's a breakfast blend, and it's lovely. As far as food goes, nothing new or interesting in that area. So what I'm going to do is hop into music real quick. And I suppose for some of you, you may or may not know that I am a gigantic Deftones fan. And so I guess I'll get into that. Sergio Vega, the bass player that replaced Chi, their bass player who passed away. Oh man, must have been as far back as like 2008, 2009. I'll look that up real quick. But yeah, their replacement bassist, who's also from the band Quicksand, came in and filled the spot. And a lot of people felt like he was a permanent member, but it turns out he was kind of more like a hired gun. He was on contract to help him write music and tour with them, but he wasn't a full official member. Excuse me. And so he has recently released a statement on his Instagram stating that he has left the band because he negotiated to become a full member contractually, and they turned him down, or at least his management definitely did. It was a little vague. He said he reached out to the guys in Deftones and they didn't get back to him, which it was pointed out to me that when you're in some kind of contract dispute, it's not really wise to talk to the other party, because anything there can be used against you in the negotiation. That makes sense to me. I don't know how accurate that is, but yeah. So obviously on the Deftones Reddit, a bunch of fans were upset. He was a really great bass player, is a great bass player, and it was a bit of a bummer. And it's just another kind of bit of personnel news that is really too bad, because not too long ago, Stephen Carpenter came out as like a flat earther, anti-vax, all this silly bullshit. And I will say that you don't have to respect everybody's opinions. Sometimes people have really stupid, destructive opinions. That being said, you don't gotta cancel them or anything like that. It's just, yeah, you can sit back and say, wow, what a dipshit. And when that came out, that was definitely a bummer. I love his guitar playing, but yeah, to find out he's so fucking stupid is really a bummer. And I can separate it. I can still enjoy Deftones and say, he's smart in certain areas like riff making. But this is just another thing with Sergio quitting the band. So some are speculating who the next bass player is going to be. Some people are like, I don't know if I like these guys anymore. And all I will say is I came across an interesting bit of speculation on Reddit, so take it for what you will, that somebody said that probably they have that full, it's probably a money dispute. So the money that comes from any Deftones merch and tours and album sales, what used to go to Chi, who passed away, probably goes to his family or to help support friends and family of Chi. And I know that they were doing something along those lines right when he passed away. I wouldn't be surprised if they're still doing that. And so when Sergio said, hey, I want that piece of the pie now, I could see Deftones being like, no, you knew what this was. We're trying to support Chi's family as that fifth hypothetical member. And you're a hired gun and you knew what you were. But that's all speculation. That's not what this podcast is about. But it is interesting. And I only put it out there because there's multiple sides to every story. There's not just two, there's like 3 or 4 or 5, especially with different band members. And there was a statement from Chino on some MixLR board or like open chat forum where he said the bassist was out of pocket. Chino has a certain way of dealing with controversy or people that he doesn't get along with, as Fred Durst knows and other people. But yeah, all I'm saying is we'll see what comes of this, and as more things come out, you don't have to necessarily take Sergio's side just because he had an eloquent Instagram post. It's not that it's even a thing to take sides on. He seems like he still wishes the bandmates well, and it was more of a management issue. But that does lead into something intriguing to me. Is as I was thinking about this, it's just the nature of band contracts and the business side of these things we love, like movies and music. One interesting thing I came across, which is also just from Reddit, so could be wrong, but when Wes Borland, the guitar player for Limp Bizkit, left way back in 2001, I think, the band went on a national hunt for another guitar player, tried out a bunch of people, kind of didn't work out. They went on, they made another album called Results May Vary. And I remember an article coming out at the time saying that Limp Bizkit's changing its name. But all they did was they made Limp Bizkit one word rather than 2 separate words. And I was like, yeah, well, that's stupid. That's not really a name change. That's almost like a logo change. Whatever, fuck it. Bullshit. Didn't think much of it. But when Wes Borland came back, it went back to being 2 words. Once again, a thing I didn't really think about. Just thought it was like, oh yeah, we're splitting up the words and Wes is back. But it occurred to me, and this person who posted on Reddit, that, it occurred to me because of this post on Reddit. Sorry for my phrasing there. That they made it one word so Wes Borland couldn't get paid for any future Limp Bizkit income, like whether it be sales on merch or touring or album sales from Results May Vary. If you change the name, you're almost like a new band. Thus, he's cut out of the loop of being able to make money off of that. Once again, don't know how accurate that is, but yeah, there you go. Tiny little thing that fans don't really notice, but the business side of the music thing can get a little vindictive. Like, it made me start thinking about other bands like Fear Factory, how I think Dino Cazares, I think that's his last name, he's the guitar player for Fear Factory. He went and purchased the rights to Fear Factory from, I think, whoever had it, and then effectively kicked out the lead singer that had been with them for so long. So there's even Fear Factory albums that don't have Dino on it, but now I think he owns that. And just bizarre stuff. Like I know Soulfly lost their longtime guitar player over some business disputes. Um, Made me think about Static X, where Tony Campos and Wayne Static were the two that own the rights to Static X. And when Wayne Static wanted to tour with all new members, not Tony, Tony wouldn't let it happen. So he had to switch the name to Wayne Static for his band. He had to release an album as Pig Hammer, all kinds of stuff like that. So, as a musician myself and a member of a band, that that's an important thing to keep in mind. I think it's like, who are you officially in this with, and who participates and owns the rights to what? Like currently with Gamma, it's officially me and Shockey as the creators of Gamma Music, and we split that right down the middle. We got a guitar player, or sorry, a drummer right now, Andrew, who's great, helping us play some gigs. And we fully intend to split it equally from show income, because it's not like we're making that much money from streaming yet. We're still starting out, and we're a tiny little local band in Fort Collins. But it does make you wonder about that, as it's like, is Andrew our main guy, and is he officially a third member? Do we split all income equally? Or is it just that we're writing and recording everything ourselves? All the beats on our stuff is programmed right now. So maybe we just split the income of the shows and not the recording, and blah, 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 blah. So if you're ever wondering why the bands you listen to end up hating each other or not getting along, things like that, just imagine being stuck in a tiny little tour bus with somebody that you're having money disputes with like that every day for like a 6-month stretch. And most people aren't really good at communicating, and there's a lot of people that try to undercut their friends and make more money than them, or say that this is my band rather than our band. And it's really too bad, but it's also understandable how that stuff can get jumbled, especially if you have like an agent or record company that's like, hey, you're the most important member, right? Maybe we give you like 15% and the other guys get 10, or like little sneaky shit like that. So I hope Deftones figures their stuff out, because they're one of the bands I loved as a teenager that my love has only grown, and I still love everything they put out to varying degrees. And certainly hope that they come out the other side of this better. And maybe it's time to experiment, get a bassist with kind of a different style, see what that does to the whole dynamic. But with that, we will move on. Also, a little bit of interesting news was that Dolly Parton turned down her acceptance into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, saying that she didn't want to split the vote amongst other people that were being inaugurated. What's the word? Like put in or nominated. And it's kind of an interesting move. It's also, I'm looking at a headline right now on pitchfork.com, and the headline reads, "The Rock Hall needs Dolly Parton more than Dolly Parton needs the Rock Hall," which is very true. And I guess all else I would say to it is that maybe that's how the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame should work. Maybe you don't get to be inducted until like the members have passed away. I don't know. Because there is something nice about honoring somebody while they're still alive and they can go enjoy that. But it is a little weird that there's bands that are like over, or they're too old, or maybe they've all passed away and they still haven't been inducted, but they're like putting in Rage Against the Machine. Now, does Rage Against the Machine belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Absolutely. But they're all still alive. They're all still doing things. They might even make some new music one day rather than just getting back together for some shows here and there. But I think it's a good move by Dolly Parton. She's like, I don't really need it. Maybe down the line or something. And so Dolly Parton continues her streak of just cool behavior. She's like the cooler, sexier, more awesome version of Dave Grohl. So Dave Grohl, you hear that? If you want to keep being in the news with all these little cool things you do, get some breast implants. Maybe it'll upgrade you a bit. I don't know, because I mean, Dolly Parton, classic. With that, new releases in music. I'm gonna be. I have started this already, but I've only done solo episodes. There's these album reviews on our YouTube page. Just simply search The Jacob Wayne Show. I've done a couple. I think I've maybe only done one solo one. And then life got busy and I haven't had a lot of time to do it. And just like these episodes of the podcast, it's a little harder to do on your own because it's easy to get off on tangents and not have somebody else anchor you. So I'm going to be doing some with our good, lovely friend of the show, Kellen Gibbons, like basically the Andy Richter to my Conan O'Brien, if you will. We're going to be getting into new album releases. I'm going to make him listen to some stuff that he'll probably hate, but it's stuff that people are talking about, new albums that people are into, and we'll discuss it and break it down. But there's two new albums that we're going to be doing next, which is the new album from Ghost, which let's remember what that title is. That's Impera. They're a band that I don't know too well, but just obviously are one of the more known bands over the last 10 years or so that really keep people's attention. So we're going to be listening to that. And then we're going to listen to Horror's new album, which that is spelled HO9909. Their new album, Skin. They're kind of like horror rap, and like they're influenced by the New York DIY scene. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but it seems like it's a pretty raw production, putting out a lot of like random little EPs here and there. But they also have some more metal elements in this record. I've listened to it a couple times, but we're going to break it down more in those videos on our YouTube. If you want them on our audio stream, write us at fakoshka@gmail.com or thejacobwayneshow@gmail.com, and we'll throw them up. Otherwise, maybe just head over to the YouTube, like and subscribe over there and watch the videos. But those are two new releases that are intriguing and we'll get more in depth with soon and have those videos up. As far as other new releases, we'll do this real quick. There's Zeit by Ramstein, and they got a new record coming out under the same name, Zeit, which I think translates to time in German. And that's like a lovely, dramatic new song from them. And I'm not sure when the new record's coming out, but I'm definitely excited for that. And we'll do a review when that's out. That's one where that's a band I have to get the new record on vinyl. Like there's certain bands when they release new things, I'm like, yep, I have to have that in my vinyl collection even before I've heard it. One that I have on the way is Meshuggah's new album, Immutable. I'm excited for that to show up soon, and we'll do a review on that as well. There's a new track from Hiatus Coyote, Red Room, or maybe it's just a remix. There's a lot of those these days. There's like a new, just a live version of Chinese Satellite by Phoebe Bridgers. New track, Nobody's Wrong by Gabby Marino, which is lovely. New track by the Grey Boy All Stars. And I think there was a new track by Alanis Morissette. I'm not seeing the name of that though. Let's see if we can find it. She released a new track called Olive Branch. So I'm imagining that's coming off of a new album. And so that was a really tasty track, and you should go give that a listen. But with that, we're going to move on to movies. So let me play that and get a sip of coffee. We are talking about movies. Now, I had some work this last 2 weeks that kept my ass on the couch, so I was able to burn through a lot of films. Right off the bat, I did a long form movie review of The Batman, which I went and saw in theaters, not on the couch, and did that review with our other friend of the show, Mike Valentine. And we broke that down. It's about an hour long, and we did upload the audio on that. I figured if it's an hour long, that's worthwhile to throw up on the audio. But you can also watch it on our YouTube channel, and we just break down that movie itself, the director, compared it to some other Batman movies, and kind of what we hope to see in the future. Now, I think I forgot to sip coffee during that intro song. Hold on a second. Yes. So I burned through a bunch of other films, and so we're going to do really quick snippet reviews of those because I don't think we'll do long form ones of any of these. So the next one I watched was West Side Story, the new Steven Spielberg adaptation of the old musical that won Best Picture. He's also nominated for Best Picture with this adaptation. It's a beautifully shot and made movie, but I couldn't stand it because it's really hard for me to get into musicals, and these types of musicals in particular where you're dealing with street gangs and they're coming up at each other. Did it. I'm gonna stab you, see? Like, ugh. I had to turn it off. Couldn't finish it. And that's the thing. I can recognize that it's a beautifully made film, beautifully shot, but oh my God, it made me cringe. And apparently, the main actor or one of the actors in it's been accused of sexual assault, so I'm going to use that as another excuse not to watch it. Yeah. See, I moved on to another Oscar nominated film, not for Best Picture, but I believe Best Actress, The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Now, see, maybe we could pull up some other reviews of this because I loved it. Not only do I love little snipes at trashy Christians that steal money from people, and I do feel like it is stealing, or any religion really. Like if they're turning it into more of a business, even more than religions already are. I love films that do a little takedown of that, but it's also done with like this really surreal comedic tone. Jessica Chastain and Andrew Garfield are awesome in it. I like the director. We'll find that in a bit. Hold on a second. Michael Showalter. He's one of the members of that comedy trio Stella, if you remember that. And he's actually made quite a few pretty entertaining movies. So I think this is even more like dramedy than his past movies. So I'm interested to see more of what he does in the future. Um, so I loved it. I think it's great. It's funny, kind of sad. And it's just like it's pretty biopicy. It has all those beats that you kind of expect, but not in a bad way. It doesn't overstay its welcome either to me. But one person off of my Letterboxd account, this is a review by Matt Lynch. He gave it 2 stars, which is pretty different than me. He said, I don't think either Chastain or, more crucially, Showalter managed to avoid caricaturing their subject, and they don't even come close to reconciling their attempt to make something ambivalent out of their depiction of her faith. They are definitely heightened. They are a bit of a caricature, but if you look up these individuals, they are caricatures. There's something just inherently ridiculous about all of it, that it is all just a big weird show, and it is kind of hard to understand like how Tammy Faye sees all this stuff. Maybe she really is just a God-loving person that thinks God loves everybody and you just got to love God back, because she's surrounded by people that have agendas, and she just seems like, no, I just want to have a show and talk about God and God's love, which is almost okay to me, if it wasn't for just siphoning money off of people that are scared of burning in hell. Looks like a lot of 3-star reviews, 2 stars. I can't help but, oh, here's one. Gabriel Rogeo, Rougeau. Not sure how to pronounce that. My bad. Gave it 2.5 stars also. They said Jessica Chastain carried this movie on her shoulders like Jesus carried the cross. Woo. I disagree. I think other actors, and I think Andrew Garfield did a great job. Vincent D'Onofrio as oh man, I already forgot his character. It's a name you know, though. Anyways, we'll move on. Just one of those other Christian evangelical preachers that want your money. It's like the 500 Club or something like that. Anyway, then I watched Trilogy of Terror. This is a made-for-TV movie from 1975, directed by Dan Curtis and starring Karen Black in these 3 anthology stories. And it really sucks. It's boring, not well made. I could see it being way more effective back when it came out, and a bunch of my friends stated that the last story in the film really scared the shit out of them. And it is funny. It's this little I don't even want to use that word specifically. It's this little doll from a foreign country with a little spear, and it has a little golden thing around it that keeps it from coming alive and hunting you. And obviously the thing just falls off and attacks her in the 3rd story in the film. And you've probably seen this thing. It's like little tiny caveman looking thing with sharp teeth, and it's like just chasing her around. And Karen Black just runs to the stupidest areas every time. And I don't know. I kept wondering, is this doll like super strong? Otherwise, it's like you could totally take this annoying little thing. But spoiler alert for a movie from 1975, she throws the doll into the oven, burns it, and then I guess that frees the soul, and the soul goes into her, and she calls her mom to come over and hang out. And then she's got sharp teeth like the doll, and she's just stabbing the floor waiting. And yeah, I could see that scaring little kids, which my friends that said it scared them were little kids when they saw it. Having not seen it and seen parodies of that doll and other things like Amy Sedaris at Home, which was hilarious, by the way. If you haven't ever watched that show, watch it. Pretty much watch anything with Amy Sedaris, I say. But Trilogy of Terror, boo. It stunk. So we're going to move on to another horror film, Antlers, that came out in 2021. I gave that 3.5 stars. It's beautifully shot. The atmosphere is good. The effects are good. The creature looks awesome. Can't really remember anything about the music. The acting, solid. Has Kerry Russell and Jesse Plemons playing brother and sister. It even revolves around a little kid in a horror movie, which usually I hate that. But the kid did a pretty good job acting. And but the plot is just it has too many symbolic things it's trying to say, and it never dives into any of them enough. It's like, is this a story about drug addiction? Is this a story about the meth and opium epidemic in the Pacific Northwest? Is it about environmentalism? Is it about the creature, the Wendigo, and what that represents? Like, it's all kind of jumbled, inconclusive, and you can just see every beat coming a mile away. So that's what brought it all the way down. Everything else was effective. It's just I do appreciate that it's not jokey. It is brutal and miserable, and there's elements of that. It's like something I think I've talked about on the podcast before, where I've really started to hate the new adaptation of Stephen King's It more and more, which is one of my favorite stories. And part of it is that it got way too jokey. Like in the book, the kids joke and there is funny stuff, but it's not that elevated, ridiculous humor that's in the movies, especially the new one. And there's a certain seriousness and creepy, worn down aspect of the town that I wish was used more in the adaptation for It. And as I've said, that story should take place in the 50s like it does in the book, because it is a bit of a statement on the 50s. But now I'm talking about another movie. I've already become disinterested from Antlers, but beautiful looking film, well acted. Hopefully the director gets a better script for the next thing he does. And I hope it's still horror. It seems like he has a good taste for that. But yeah, ultimately just not enough for me. Then I watched a classic, Deliverance. Squeal! Squeal like a pig! Sure got a purty mouth. Where are you going, city boy? All that stuff, right? It's the hillbilly rape movie. And that scene is disturbing. Also, hate to say it because of South Park, hilarious. I saw the Indiana Jones episode, and it's just pitch perfect recreation of the scene in Deliverance. And it's weird to be so thoroughly disturbed by something and yet know it's hilarious at the same time. And that's just what happens with movies as they exist in our lives. Some really serious, dramatic stuff kind of boils down to hilarity sometimes, or parody. And So all I will say is that I gave that 4.5 stars out of 5, and that's just because it's a beautifully shot film, especially for the year it came out, 1972. Um, Acted really well. Has John Voight before he became like psychotic, or maybe he was always psychotic and we just didn't know. Burt Reynolds, Ned Beatty, which I think, let's see here, directed by John Borman. I think somebody said that Ned Beatty directed this. One of my friends did. They were wrong, I guess. Or maybe he helped. Not so sure. But that director, John Borman, let's take a look real quick. He also directed Zardoz, which is an awesome one. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. A lot of other ones, but nothing I really recognize. Oh, he did the second Exorcist. Okay, so moving on. Anyway, I can see why it's a classic. It's essentially functions like a horror film itself, but it is like more of a, like, one bad thing leads to another. It's like a tale of circumstance and man versus nature, man versus man, nature versus man, like man versus society. Like it kind of goes through all these different little phases in the story, and it's yeah, and just what it means to take a life. When would you be willing to? Raises a lot of interesting questions like that. So it's a classic. You've probably heard of it. Deliverance. The ding 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 scene is pretty great too, near the beginning, and then it gets reused throughout the film, and they've ruined that song to a degree. So I could see people that are into bluegrass and other things like that probably like, God damn it, associated with squeal like a pig. Pull down them panties, boy. Get down there, boy. Banjo is not pig rape music, all right? And nobody raped a pig. They just made him act like a pig. All right, I'm moving on. Then I watched a movie called Varsity Blues. This is not a, I wouldn't say this is a great movie, but I have a really soft spot for it. I gave it 4 stars. That's because I was like just underneath the age of the high school kids in this movie. Utah doesn't take football as seriously as Texas does, that's for sure. But I think there is a certain bit of overly serious jockiness and like more of like the religious angle on that. Like, if you're a good religious boy, you like go to school, you're clean cut, and you play sports. Like there is a bit of that in Utah. And what I liked about this film is it shows you what might be enjoyable about playing football and being on a team with other football types. But it also shows you the dark side of that, like the dude who's just like a borderline sexual predator, and the other guys that's like fat dude with CTE that's just the party animal, and let's just feed him sugar and more food. And the racist coach, just like, yeah, it. But the soundtrack is awesome, especially if you like 90s pop, punk rock stuff, kind of things like that. Um, One review from Sarah Jean gave it 1 star. She said, "How many times can My Hero by the Foo Fighters play in one movie? A lot, like at least 5 times. It works every time for me. So like I don't get why that's 1 star, but all right." One person gave it 5 stars. Billy Bob. That's their review, which I get it. He's the star of the movie. Like it's supposed to be James Vanderbeek, and he does a pretty good job, but except for the one line where he goes, "I don't want your life." That's just, I still giggle during that line delivery. John Voight was also in this, and he got way closer to being a psychopath, becoming the true John Voight that we all know and love, that said that if Trump loses the election, that's the devil winning or some bullshit like that. So fuck John Voight. Yeah, so we'll move on from that. It was also another one of those MTV produced or made movies. Another one was like Joe's Apartment, and a couple other ones. Was She's All That an MTV movie? I'm not sure, but that really spoke to me, and I think a lot of people my age. We're kind of exennials. I've heard if you're born in like 1986 and maybe 85, 87, that were like right at the tail end of Generation X and the beginning of millennials. So call us exennials. And I think those MTV movies and TRL and the end of the 90s was really our time. I will say that. And then we got to go to high school for 9/11 and the beginnings of the decline of the United States. I moved on. Last movie on this list is Horrible Bosses 2. I had watched Horrible Bosses 1 on February 20th. And so I figured, what the hell? I don't remember seeing this second one. It's way more absurd and ridiculous. And I love the people in this movie. And everybody says fun, silly stuff, but the plot's stupid. It's absurd. I feel like the first one had at least somewhat more cohesiveness, made a bit more sense, but they just went even more over the top with this one. And so I turned it off partway through, switched over to Varsity Blues, and then came back and finished it because I still had more work to do. So, it's weird to like so many people involved with the film and actually find a lot of some of the things they said funny, but just it's using every pop song at the time, like 2014. Just like, was that big? Was this song big? Let's do a montage to it. And they even have like a story beat using "You're Gonna Hear Me Roar" by Katy Perry. I know, sound just like her. So those are all the movies I've watched, and not much movie news that I came across that I thought was worthwhile. So move on to any shows that we've been watching. We're about to watch the last episode of Afterlife by Ricky Gervais. That's been a really funny show in that low-key kind of British humor kind of way. But I'm ready to be done with it. I think 3 seasons is perfect for it. Gonna get into Raised by Wolves. That first episode of season 2 really kind of threw me off. I thought the tone was a bit off, but we're gonna get into that. Started watching Winning Time, which is produced and first episode is directed by Adam McKay, who I've gone off on this podcast before. I really don't like his political satire because it comes off as a bit too snobby, liberal. I don't know, superiority complex. It like smells its own farts. But that same approach he uses in those films works pretty well with the rise of the Lakers dynasty and telling that story. Like basically all the characters turning and breaking the fourth wall, talking to the camera, random stats appear by their head as they talk about it, kind of thing. It's kind of like a Scorsese ripoff, I think. I could be wrong, but yeah, but I've loved that show so far. Only 2 episodes in, and I think that's all that's out right now. That comes out on Sundays. Keep trying to watch another whatever that new DC one. It's the I don't even know. It's the one with John Cena. I'm gonna try to get more into that, but we'll see. it's a bit too much more of that. Isn't it awesome seeing superheroes say fuck and silly things? Like, if I want that, I'm just gonna watch The Boys because The Boys is awesome. This one just seems like it's kind of desperately trying to do that. Um, but I don't know, maybe it gets way better. I know about the cameos at the end of the series already, so cameos is not enough to make a show good, as we learned from the Book of Boba Fett. Like, the Mandalorian rules, and it still has a lot of fan servicey cameos, but it weaved into the story way better. All that Robert Rodriguez-ness, who another person I love, but just the way he put together the Book of Boba Fett was silly. And just, hey, look, a Rancor fighting a Wookiee. It's just, did the story need that? I don't know. So cameos do not make your story. They're great, but they gotta make sense narratively. How long have we been recording? I feel like we'll get into. I was going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the news, but I am no expert on relations between Ukraine and Russia. So all I will say is fuck Putin. I made a painting of, it's like kind of a symbolic representation of the Ukraine flag. It uses the trident symbol, other symbols that relate to Ukraine, and I'm donating 100% of print profits from that to World Central Kitchen, who are feeding Ukrainian refugees right now, and sold the original and donating 50% because I still got to make a little bit to keep painting and resupply. Like, I do got to get by as an artist. And, if you buy one of my other originals, I can do more charitable pieces and donate 100%. But you got to get the other stuff. That's just the way it is in the art world. So fuck Putin, long live Ukraine. Maybe we'll talk about it with Kellen as things develop, and hopefully the war is over by the next week. Let's hope. But if you want that painting, just go to, as a print, go to fineartamerica.com or redbubble.com. You can buy it as a throw pillow, as an art print, as a mug, and any profits from that will go to World Central Kitchen. So yeah, make a purchase there. Just go to either of those sites, fineartamerica.com or redbubble.com, search Jacob Wayne Briner, and search To Guard as the Apple of Eye. That is the title. That's a rough translation of a Ukrainian idiom or saying that's, you guard something you cherish like the apple of one's eye. So let's get into this day in history and wrap this thing up. So the featured event for March 15th is back in 44 BCE. Julius Caesar is assassinated on the Ides of March. Dictator Julius Caesar was launching a series of political and social reforms when he was assassinated this day, the Ides of March, by a group of nobles, among whom were Cassius and Brutus. I think Brutus Pontius. And we sure could use a Cassius and Brutus in Russia right about now. Anyway, we're going to move on. Born today is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was born on March 15th, 1933.
Yes.
And she died, unfortunately, September 18th, 2020. So rest in peace. She was a liberal female justice on the Supreme Court if you haven't seen the movie about her, RBG, maybe it's called The Notorious RBG, you should watch it because it's really great. She's one of the few people in American politics I can really stand behind. It's also, as other birthdays go, we have the birth of David Cronenberg. I forget what he's done. Let's look it up real quick. Because I get him mixed up with somebody else. Okay. He is who I thought he was. He's great. He's done Existence with a Z at the end. He did Videodrome, The Fly. I love The Fly. Did Scanners. I love Scanners. Did A History of Violence. Another good one, I think, about the Russian mafia. You know, did Dead Zone, Eastern Promises. Man, good stuff. So, David Cronenberg, hell yeah, bro. Then we also have Jon Snow, a British physician. He was born in 1813. I'm not really sure what he did though. But as far as other events that happened on this day, on March 15th, 2019, more than 1.5 million students participated in climate change protests around the world as part of Fridays for Future, a movement started by Swedish environmental activist Greta Thunberg. Yeah. Then in 2011, this is kind of interesting. That seems to be anti-government protests were held in several cities across Syria, considered the beginning of the country's civil war, which we all know that the US and Russia kind of had a bit of a back and forth as superpowers backing different sides of that. Well, I don't even know if they back different sides. It's just they were definitely involved in the power grab a little bit. Oh, in relation to
China.
In 2003, Hu Jintao succeeded Jiang Zemin at I'm losing my ability with the language. 我说一点点中文，但是我不会是中文。12年. I think I just said I speak a little bit of Chinese, but I haven't studied it for the last 12 years. But I'm sure my grammar on the sentence structure is really fucked up. But what I do know about Chinese history, which I really do need to brush up on it, it's been a bit too long. I forget certain things. Hu Jintao succeeding Jiang Zemin as the president of China was, in context, was generally a good thing if you're for progress in human rights and the opening up of China. And Hu Jintao was in power during most of Barack Obama's time as our president, and you know there's been conflict between the United States and China for a long time, but he was kind of seen as a little more progressive considering that. But then, of course, he got replaced by Winnie the Pooh, Xi Jinping, who's a bit of a strongman asshole, just like Putin, and looks like Winnie the Pooh. So yeah, fuck Winnie the Pooh, fuck Xi Jinping, and fuck Putin. Oh, in 1990, the Congress of People's Deputies of the USSR elected Mikhail Gorbachev to the newly created post of president of the Soviet Union. I think he's the one that also helped create the fall of the USSR, if I remember correctly, because that was 1991, if I remember correctly. And then Reagan was all like,
That's right! Who do you think you are? I am!
yes. In 1972, The Godfather, an epic drama about organized crime, premiered to universal acclaim. The Academy Award-winning film was directed by Francis Ford Coppola and starred Al Pacino and Marlon Brando.
Yes.
And let's see if there's anything else. There's quite a bit that happened on this day, so we're just going to move right along. But military hero and 7th U.S. President, 1829-37 to 37, Andrew Jackson, who was the first president to come from west of the Appalachians and the first to gain office by direct appeal to the mass of voters. So a populist. He was born in 1767. And I'm going to go ahead and do this one.
666, the mark of the beast!
Because he was also a piece of shit that was racist. He's kind of almost like Trump-esque in a way, and he's responsible for the Trail of Tears. So fuck Andrew Jackson too, because that's one great thing about being an American is I can say fuck our presidents. You know, it's like fuck Trump. Let's go Brandon. No, fuck Biden a little bit, even though he's not anywhere near as bad as Trump. Fuck Andrew Jackson, fuck Putin, fuck Xi Jinping, and fuck Winnie the Pooh. All right? That seems like that's enough for this week. All I'm saying is power of the people. And got to remember these leaders work for us. We don't work for them. Huh? All right. I'll see you next week. Ta-ta! Thank you for listening to The Jacob Wayne Show. If you would like to contact us, please write us at fakoshka@gmail.com. That is FAKOSHKA@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Simply search The Jacob Wayne Show and it should pop right up. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Please write us. It helps add content to the show and makes the show even better for you, the listener. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome